Hello, thank you for joining our PCI Enhanced Security Package training this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to discuss the Payments Now and Next website. We'll show you through that site a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about the importance of data security. And then we're going to go over some of the terms that you guys have heard, kind of an alphabet soup with PCI, EMV, and NSC. Then we'll really dig into the Enhanced Security Package, what's included, what your merchants will be getting with that package. And then at the end, we'll talk about the changes to your existing merchants and the upcoming program phases. We'll have you save all of your questions for the end of the training today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, Payments Now and Next website. It's a great informational website that we created for you to share with your merchants. A ton of information on this site. I'll walk you guys through it a little bit. Essentially going over why EMV is important, why data security is important, and really focusing on the Enhanced Security Package. This is the site where your merchants will come to do their PCI compliance scan. They'll come to submit a claim for their coverage if they need to, if they have a data breach. To learn about EMV here, they can learn about the liability shift. They can learn about PCI and why it's important and why it's part of the mandate for them to keep their accounts and their credit card data secure. And then we also get a lot of information about advanced security products like P2PE, tokenization, and of course EMV on this page as well. Finally, the Enhanced Security Package that all of our merchants will be getting. Get a lot of details here about what's included in that Enhanced Security Package. Soon we're going to have a link here for our merchants to make a claim if they do experience a breach. So we're adding that. So that's the Payments Now and Next website. Again, it's not branded with iPayment. It's meant for everybody to share with their merchants. The informational-based site. There is a Learn More button or a Contact Us button. If one of your clients reaches out to us, they will be directed back to their sales office for any sales-based questions. We're going to talk about the importance of data security and what it matters to us and what should matter to your merchants. Over the last couple of years, data breaches have been more and more common, and we've heard more about them in the news. So a lot of us heard about the Home Depot and the Target breaches last year. There was a huge breach by Sony and an even larger breach by Heartland a number of years back. As data breaches become more and more prevalent, it's more important for us to make sure that our merchants and that we are protecting payment data. That our big box retailers, so tier one merchants, are kind of taking notice of these big breaches and how much they cost to clean up. They really invested in the security of their payment acceptance systems. What that means is that fraudsters are now going to start targeting small businesses. And it's really important for us to communicate this to our merchants because the cost of a breach can easily exceed $50,000 for the business owner. So they look at these small businesses as easier targets because the big box retailers have kind of, set up their security, and that makes it all the more important for us to make sure that we're communicating this to our merchants and that they understand that this is important and that they're going to start being targeted more and more. About 5 years ago, iPayment merchants, maybe we would get notification of an incident once every quarter, once every 6 months. In last year, that's increased to between 5 to 10 per month. So our merchants are being targeted, and I think that can really help drive home the importance of bringing this up with your merchants, making sure that they're PCI compliant and their terminals and their acceptance methods are PCI compliant. And in the coming months and now, you want to focus on making sure that your merchants are EMV capable or EMV ready. We'll talk a little bit about that. So EMV and the liability shift, which is happening on October 1st of this year, a mandate that really came from not only the president, but the card brands as well, saying that we need to switch to a new technology that's going to help drive fraud down. Fraud in the United States has increased 300% in the last 5 years as EMV has become more and more prevalent overseas and in Europe and Canada. Those fraud dollars have moved to the United States where we're using an antiquated system for accepting cards. So magnetic stripe data, which is what we're all used to, you swipe your card and there's a little magnetic strip on the back of it. That's been around since about 1965, and the bad guys out there have had enough time to figure out how to mimic that or duplicate those cards and create fraudulent cards. It's happening more and more in the United States, and that's why EMV has become such an important part of what the future of payments is going to be. So on October 1st, all of the card brands have agreed that there'd be a liability shift for fraudulent transactions. What means to your merchant, right? How do we communicate that to our merchants? Is say, Mr. Merchant, today, if you were to receive, today being before October 1st, 2015, if you were to receive a chargeback for a fraudulent transaction that took place at your business, as long as you can provide a signed receipt for that transaction, the cardholder, whoever issued that card to that cardholder, is going to pay the losses for that transaction, and the merchant gets to keep the money that he thinks is rightfully his, right? He sold a good to somebody, they get a receipt, they used a credit card, and he should get the money. Well, as the EMV liability shift on October 1st, that transaction would be, the owner of that business, would be responsible for that transaction. So if somebody came in on October 2nd and purchased something from that merchant and they used a fraudulent card, and that merchant received a fraudulent chargeback, he would have to pay that chargeback. It doesn't matter if he found that person's driver's license number and address and phone number and they signed the receipt. He could have done so many things to try to verify that cardholder. It wouldn't matter. If that merchant did not have an EMV-capable terminal to be able to accept an EMV card or an e-transaction, the merchant is on the hook for that chargeback. Now, I brought up the EMV terminal. That's a way for a merchant to stay out of that liability blanket. As long as that merchant has an EMV-capable, EMV-ready terminal, they will not be held accountable for those fraudulent transaction chargebacks. That they need. In order to keep out of the liability, they need an EMV terminal. So with all of the terminals that are coming out, and they're very affordable, it's easy to make sure that our merchants are EMV capable. It's just about having the conversation with our merchants as to why they need a new piece of equipment. So I think that that's a really good conversation to have to kind of give them an example of here's what it looks like today if this were to happen. And October 1st, if that same exact thing happens, this is what the change would be. Right now, you're responsible for that money that you weren't previously responsible for. To avoid it, get an EMV terminal. They're really affordable, and you guys can help get your merchants the right equipment that they need to be EMV ready. We'll talk about alphabet soup, understanding the terms. You've heard a couple of times, we've mentioned a few terms. I'm sure you guys are familiar with PCI. It is something that came about in about the last 10 years, and it's also from the card brands. And PCSS is what you'll commonly hear thrown around. Stands for the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. And this is a standard that outlines a series of standards that are mandated by all the card brands. So Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express, they got together and they administered the Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council. This standard was created primarily to help increase the controls around cardholder data and to reduce credit card fraud and its exposure. So what PCI is doing is it set a number of standards on payment acceptance devices and systems. So your credit card terminal, if you're using a gateway, it would be the gateway. If you're using a point-of-sale system, it would be the point-of-sale system. for the actual payment acceptance to make sure that that's being done in a secure manner. And there's also other best practices where they're going to say you can't keep copies of cardholder, of credit cards, right? You can't keep like a big filing cabinet and everybody's file has a copy of their credit card in it. That's against PCI rules, right? So there's a number of security standards. You guys can always go take a look at the PCI security standards website and see all about all of their standards and all of their news. They're constantly updating that site with new and pertinent information for PCI. And this is another really big important thing that's happening this year, and you guys I'm sure have heard about this happening, especially on the last slide where we talked about the EMV liability shift. But this is a global standard that was formed in 1994 by Europay, MasterCard, and Visa. This standard is basically saying instead of using a magnetic stripe on cards that is static data, right? So the data that's on that magnetic strip, it doesn't change. It gets put on there when the card is printed, and that's what it is. Pretty like your driver's license. Right? That information is the exact same, it never changes. Whatever's printed on there, that's what it is. The new cards, the EMV cards, have a chip embedded into the card. And the chip is actually creating a unique one-time use token for each transaction. So now when we swipe our magnetic stripe card, it's sending through the 16-digit card number, the expiration date, and the CVV code. So that's all the information that's on that magnetic stripe card, all the other things that are in the track 2 data. But the payment data is that, and it's always that 16-digit card number on your magnetic card. Now, the EMV card, every single transaction is a new number. You're never going to be using the same credit card number for each transaction as long as you're making that transaction in person. EMV cards, a lot of people ask, well, what about buying online? Well, buying online, you're not changing your current way of doing business. So you're going to use that 16-digit card or 16-digit card number that's printed on the front of that card. We'll talk a little bit about online security when we get into this slide, but first we're going to talk about NFC. If you guys have heard about NFC in the recent months, and especially since October when Apple released their Apple Pay digital wallet. NFC stands for Near Field Communication, and this is a data transmission protocol that essentially is letting the data from your phone communicate with the terminal to transmit a payment token for a transaction. So Apple Pay, Android Pay, Google Wallet, if anyone still uses that, and Samsung Pay all utilize this technology. So again, this is also using a token. We've mentioned a token a number of times, so I want to pause here because tokenization can be a little confusing. Tokenization is essentially saying, I've got this 16-digit card number. I could encrypt it, and encrypt it means I'm putting it into a new kind of code language, but you could use decrypt code and get back to that 16-digit card number, right? With token, you are actually completely replacing that 16-digit card number with another number that means nothing, right? It's a token that I'm saying I verified the card number. I can confirm to you that the card number is accurate, but instead of giving you the card number, I'm going to give you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which can't be used in a transaction or anything, right? So if that's stolen, if that token is breached, it's a useless piece of data. So with EMV and NFC, what they do, they are replacing that 16-digit card number with a token for each transaction. That's cool stuff. Finally, point-to-point encryption. So maybe you've heard of this and maybe you haven't. It's so nuanced yet because it's kind of a newer product. Point-to-point encryption or end-to-end encryption is something that's being added to online payments to help our online merchants and our e-commerce merchants become more secure. A lot of the changes, especially with the EMV liability shift in October, in the card present environment, in the retail environment, it's going to be drastically reduced. I was some numbers, and what we saw in Europe with EMV was really kind of proliferated. And what we saw in Canada was that there was a dramatic drop in card-present fraud. So in the retail environment, fraud goes down. It does help reduce fraud in a card-present retail environment. However, simultaneously, as fraud goes down in that retail environment, in the online environment goes up. So it's a reverse correlation, whereas as we drive fraud down in store, driving fraud up online. Now, point-to-point encryption is another way to help protect websites and try to keep that data secure. I said what it's doing is the cryptographic technology that's going to be translating all of the data transmitted by that gateway, and it's going to remain encrypted from the point that the cardholder enters the data into the website all the way through to the card networks or to the brand network. That's point-to-point encryption, and that is staying encrypted from one point to another and all the way back. It's never being decrypted by any party in the payment stream. End-to-end encryption is a great product as well. This doesn't go quite as far as point-to-point encryption. End-to-end encryption is encrypting that data from the gateway through the platform to the processor, whoever's going to process that transaction. So end-to-end encryption, still a really great product, but not as great as point-to-point encryption that's going to keep that data encrypted from the point it is entered all the way through to the payment network, so Visa or MasterCard or whoever. All right, so now we're digging into our enhanced security package and really discuss what's included. But first I will talk about why we put together the enhanced security package. PCI is, of course, very, very important. We wanted to track from that. But we noticed that, a lot of our merchants see PCI as a nuisance. It's this thing I have to do every year. I just have to answer these questions. I have to pay an annual fee for it, and I don't really understand why. What we wanted to do is we wanted to build some value into data security and help our merchants understand why it's so important and what we're going to put into this to get it more valuable for our merchants. So what's included is financial breach protection of up to $100,000 in the event that one of our merchants has a data breach. Now, just to be clear, our team that holds that insurance. So we hold insurance on all of your merchants. So every Redfin merchant is getting this protection, whether they want it or not. We're holding that insurance because we have their back. We know that if something were to happen and they get a breach and it costs them $50,000 or $70,000, it's going to be really hard for our merchant. And we'd rather be able to go and talk to our insurance company and have that $100,000 protection there than lose that merchant because they had to go out of business. $100,000 covers the audit fees that all merchants have to go through. It covers any card brand fines that they would have to pay, covers card replacement costs that can be incurred, as well as some other fees such as notifications. We'll have to notify the various legal offices and notify all of the cardholders that may have been affected. So that's also included. Another really cool thing that we've thrown in, again, this is provided by iPayment, not by the insurance company. So all Redfin merchants, if they were to experience a data breach, iPayment will be covering the cost of up to 5 processing terminals per MID number to upgrade their equipment that might be impacted by data breach. So one of the first things that happens when a merchant experiences a data breach or a data incident is they're asked to replace their equipment. Right, because it's almost always assumed that whatever happened, it happened because there was a vulnerability in the processing equipment that they're using. They're asked to upgrade their equipment to PCI EMV ready equipment. They're going to cover the cost of up to 5 processing terminals. I do want to be clear that it is 5 processing terminals. A lot of our merchants may have, very elaborate micro point of sale systems. This would not cover those point of sale systems. It would cover processing terminals. Also direct access to new security technologies. And that's just basically we're going to provide you with the tools that you need to be able to accept those EMV cards and to be able to accept NFC payments like Apple Pay. We have scaled fund data security solutions like point-to-point encryption to shield data across networks, and transaction tokenization to help protect stored data. So another thing to kind of thinking about tokenization is any of your merchants who are using reoccurring billing products, they're going to need to be tokenizing that transaction data that they're storing to be able to bill their customers every month. And finally, we've always supplied this with our PCI program, but we also are including our PCI self-assessment questionnaire and PCI security scan if that is required. Of course, access to the Now and Next website, where we'll be updating it with security information and best practices for business types. All of that is what is included in the enhanced security package. We really feel like we've beefed up the value that we're providing, and it's not just another fee to our merchants, but rather something that's tangible that they can really wrap their minds around and see that we're giving them something very valuable for this program, and not just a nuisance of filling out their SAQ every year. All right, so we're going to stop here quickly and just talk about the program phases. So the first phase is in phase one. That was May of this year, where all merchants that were signed on our new app version had MIDs issued between October 1st, 2014 and March 31st, 2015, and then all merchants who were previously billed on the May 2014 statement for PCI were rolled into the enhanced security package in May of this year. There's a really big number. I think it's about 40,000 merchants who are currently in the program and who are, experience that enhanced security package and who are getting that data breach protection coverage. Phase two will be in October of this year, and that will include all new merchants signed on the new app version with MIDs issued between April 1st and September 30th of this year. And again, all merchants who were previously billed on the October 2014 statement. Phase three will be May of next year, and that's going to include all remaining merchants that will get lumped into that enhanced security package. So you'll want to check in with Redfin, but all merchants that are being affected will experience a fee increase. You'll just want to check in with Redfin to see what that increase will be. Future merchants, so right now, and today's date is 7/15/2015, we have not released the new app version that includes the enhanced security package. We're expecting a release of a new application version around September of this year. Once that new application version is released, all new merchants that are signed with iPayment will be automatically enrolled into the enhanced security package. So again, right now, merchants are not being automatically enrolled in the enhanced security package. That'll happen once we release the new application version in September of this year. All right, guys, that's all we have for the enhanced security package training this morning. We're going to stop here and see if we have any questions. But thank you all for joining us. And for those of you listening to our recording, thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and stop the recording. Please reach out to partner support at Redfin if you do have any questions.